that is being pulled off here. So you're now recording me.
We
Okay.
we are, just in case somebody else joins. But thank you. You've been patient through, especially through the challenge process and asking the questions and waiting for our answers, and we greatly appreciate that.
Well, same goes for you. The question I have is we received out of what 2,500, I don't know, a whole bunch of subscribers, we received two challenges,
Okay.
mainly claiming that they aren't getting um, a service level beyond what they're paying. So my feeling is I don't know that it's worth any effort to rebut that other than call them and make sure the customers are happy, because it's primarily a situation of making sure the customers aware of what they're paying for and making sure they're aware that we're delivering it. Because a lot of the issues that come up from customers are perception based, not necessarily, you know, factual once you drill down. So my question is, in a situation like that, do we need to worry about those two challenges? I mean, other than, what we're going to do already and what we normally do as a provider, and that is making sure they're happy.
I'm going to actually have either Amy or Phil respond to this, just in terms of what we'd like to see, or NTI would like to see. If you have this
Okay,
like this.
sure.
Hey, Ben, that's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. I know it probably sounds, well, we only got two challenges. Is it important to us to respond? Two out of thousands of customers that you have.
Yes.
The challenge, you received the challenge because the evidence that they provided us led us to believe that they were correct, and so it was approved.
Okay.
If we don't receive any rebutting evidence to say that you're incorrect, and we can prove that you do have these service feeds, even though you, the customer, say you haven't been receiving them, we would have to probably adjudicate that as being a fair challenge, and we would accept it, which means that location would change status. And I know that's not something you'd want to happen.
Oh, okay. So they would go from served to unserved
Or, yeah, correct.
or underserved.
It would certainly change the status of the location. It would not be considered served at this point.
And Ben, that
Okay.
makes them eligible, those locations then eligible for BEAD funds. And then the state would have to fund a project that makes those served ultimately. So that's why the data, like getting the data right, is really important at this juncture.
Well, I get that. There are two customers in the midst of a community that's about 2,000 strong. For a provider to come in and provide them service would probably cost, I don't know if you would foot the bill for that or Beads would foot the bill for that, at least 20, 30,000, I don't know, maybe 15,000. So the odds of and the guidelines of Beads would prevent another provider from overbuilding our entire network to serve two customers. Correct? Is that correct?
That is, how can I be diplomatic about this? It is unlikely that someone would come in, but there are other alternative technologies that could be made available to those locations.
Well, they could go to Starlink.
Right. That is correct.
Which is fine. I mean, that happens all the time. So, well, I get what you're saying. We'll go ahead and rebut it. The deadline for rebuttal is what, the 20 to submit a rebuttal?
The night. It's a week.
When?
A week from today, on the 19th at midnight.
Okay, we'll go ahead and submit a rebuttal. But the rebuttal process, as far as I'm aware, means that we have to take 3 measurements from our end, on 3 consecutive days, I believe, and document that they're receiving more than they're paying for. Correct?
Well, you have to document that they're receiving serve speeds. So in other words, if it's a 20 by 10 service, then a 100 by 20 service, then you need to document as part of your NMS's, whoever you use, pre-seam, whatever it is, you need to document they're getting that speed on 3 separate days.
They don't need to be consecutive days.
They don't have to be, no.
Okay.
As long as they're definitely within the last 60 days. And
I
so
assume it's going to be this week, so you're going to be fine there.
yeah,
Okay.
and it could be over the weekend as well. It could be the weekend.
It could have been last week, but yeah, it has to be within the last 60 days. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we have 3 days out of the remaining 7 to measure the service we're delivering there. Correct?
Yeah, out over the next 7 days. Yeah, 3 of those days.
Okay.
And it could be
All
one
right.
is at midnight and one 2 minutes after that.
Okay. Now, it took several days for you to review these challenges. It'll take several days for you to review our rebuttal, correct?
Not necessarily, depending on how complete your
Okay.
rebuttal evidence is. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that being said, if they're paying for 10 by, let's say they're paying for, well, in that area, minimum is 50 by 20. We have to show that they can get greater than 100 by 20 to prove that they're served.
Correct.
We're not required to just prove that they're getting more than, 50 by 20.
No, the rules basically say to be considered served, it has to be.
Okay, so we have to show that. Okay.
At least. So it doesn't have to be fully over 100 by 20, but it has to be at least 100 by 20.
Yeah.
Okay, now in this case, the customer is a non-paying customer. We have continual problems with both of these customers. And it's likely that there's something wrong on their end. Now, to get around that, you require that we measure on our end up to their router. Is that correct?
Sure. And I'm not going to assume anything about your network, but I'm assuming you're monitoring end-to-end service speeds and signals and all that type of stuff. So,
well, keep in mind, end-to-end is our end to what on their end?
To the router.
All we could do, go to the router. Okay. Because, there's all kinds of variables from the router to the computer. So a lot of times it's a wireless interference issue, that kind of a thing. They're trying to, fuel a computer that's, 300-400 feet away from the wireless router inside the center of the house, that kind of a thing. So, all right, well, you've answered that question. We really, to preserve the served status of that location, we need to prove that we're delivering 100 by 20 or greater. We actually deliver 400 by 25 there at full boat. So we just have to prove that. He's actually getting greater, well, yeah, he's paying for, I think, 50 by 20, but he's getting twice that when we ran the test ourselves. So, okay, well, I think you answered the question. If I in the next few minutes come up with another question, I'll let you know. But I'll let the other staff members ask you questions, I guess. I want to thank all of you once again, and thank you, Clay Woolley. You've been very helpful to us throughout this process. And, we're anxious to move ahead on this whole project. We view all of you as important, rich investors. So and we want to make sure you're happy with what you're investing in. So anyway, that being said, I'll try to think up another question and be quiet for a minute here. You gonna hang out? How long? How long would you hang out waiting for another question?
I don't have a time frame. We've got office hours for an hour. You're our attendee, so everybody.
Okay, well, you need to wait an hour for my next question. I'm just kidding. Um, okay, well, yeah, that's all I have for right now. I've got other questions that may be outside the rebuttal process.
That's fine.
Would it be? That's fine.
As long,
Okay.
yeah, chat. This is really a forum that we wanted people to be able to ask about what's going on specifically, but also you can ask just
Okay.
BEAD program questions. So outside of that, we may not be able to answer, but we'll do our best to answer things that are related to the BEAD
Okay.
program itself.
Well, what if this might be a comment, maybe as well as a question, is BDC, we just submitted BDC, and BDC, the location IDs were inaccurate in two of our areas, so we submitted what we had, which is an error based on the wrong location IDs. I mean, the location IDs had addresses in wrong cities and so forth. So we're challenging BDC to correct those location IDs and to add location IDs for us, because a lot of our customers we serve are on national forest land, and their address is like a campsite number rather than a street number or a house number. And I suspect that there's some sort of gap in the reporting of those locations or GPSs to addresses, and it's all over the map. So we're challenging all that stuff, and that will, I think, get into BDC within the next couple of weeks. And then BDC will digest that and publish it to the map. And I assume you will use those in your beads map. Is that correct? Or is the beads map as of next week cast in stone?
The BEAD map is not cast in stone until NTIA says that it is. So
Okay.
when we get to the end of the challenge process itself, we send all of the, as Phil was saying, all of the adjudication. So all of the decisions on all of those challenges, based on the evidence, we send our list to NTIA. NTIA will take a look at that. They will take a look at the challenge process, how we conducted that, and then determine whether or not those are approved or rejected from their perspective. And then once that happens, that would be the list that we use as we go into the subgrantee selection and the grant portion of the BEAD program. Amy, did I miss anything there?
Well, my question is, do you know, this is outside your purview probably, but do you know if NTIA includes BDC updates, which are rolling updates? Does NTIA include BDC updates as of a certain date? I guess they have to come up with a decision that says, hey, this is the map as of yada yada. Do they include BDC updates in their final publication of their approved, served, and unserved areas?
They do, however, keep in mind that we have all 50 states and territories doing this also, and we're not all on the same time frame. So part of
Got it.
yeah, so part of the reason you've probably seen in some of the notes are posted online that we're using version 4 of the fabric, that it is the BDC data as of 12/31/2023. Different states are going to have different dates that they're using, and the same thing applies to and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the same thing applies to whenever NTIA comes back to them and says, okay, yes, this is the approved list as far as we are concerned. This is your approved map for use for subgrantee selection. So it does vary. The BDC data does get incorporated, but based on the timing of when states are running their processes, they may or may not be truing up with that. It may not be, the next version may not be available at the point that they true up. Amy, did I
Okay.
anything there?
Yeah, I think that's right. It sounds like you're making some corrections to the new fabric. And that new fabric, we do not expect to see that out until November, right? According to the FCC's schedule. And
That's
so
what I'm hearing.
again, I think what Laura's saying is that the timing may not match up with the state's process and timing for getting the results of the challenge process data back to NTIA, because there's a 120-day period that you can hold the challenge process, then you have to get that data back to the federal government, which is, dictated by them. So I think it yet to be determined. It depends, but I would not hold your breath that is the case necessarily here. States are all taking different approaches with respect to Fabric version 4 if they ran it on 3 or 3.2. So I think it depends.
Well, and the latest one as of June is version 5, right?
Well, exactly. And that's,
Yeah. Okay.
and the
Well,
associated data will not be out from the FCC, right? They're collecting it now, so it's not going to be out until later. And so
I could direct this question to NTIA possibly, and maybe get some more clarification as to what's going to be included in their final map and when.
Yes, you could.
Okay. All right. So
And
I'll do that.
yeah,
Good.
NTIA also has to, so they do a federal deduplication. We did our state one. They have to do that once the FCC releases the data. So there's a little bit of a lag there as well.
Sure. Question. How many challenges did you guys get? Do you have a number on that?
Just over 3,000 total challenges.
3,000 over, what's the denominator of that equation or that fraction?
Well,
That'd be,
we've got about 98,000 locations.
so 3,000 were challenged out of 98,000.
No. 3,000 challenges and because there are area challenges and that sort of thing.
Okay. Could be more.
Yeah, a result of 98,000 locations. So, and we will be providing more information as we wrap up the rebuttal phase. There's a requirement that we publish some information about that, so that will be made available a little bit later on. We don't have a final date for that, but by the end of the challenge process, it will be.
How many total locations are on the California map? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I don't.
Okay. Interesting. Is there going to be another round of beads? Don't know.
No idea.
Okay.
We got to see.
Question for Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Well, I'll think up another question while I have you guys, your valuable time here. We can multitask while we're waiting, but yeah, this has been it's quite an experience, and it's very well purposed, I think, but very, very challenging how to achieve that purpose. The challenge process obviously is designed to do that. But BDC does it every 6 months, pretty much, right? I mean, we all as providers have to submit our latest coverage, subscriber list as well as availability list every 6 months.
I think we can all agree that the map from where it started has gotten just much better, right? It's taken, and that is what the BDC is designed to do. But at the same time, the BEAD statute was very clear that because they were really sort of started very close together, that you start with the BDC data and the FCC's data, and the states have that opportunity because they are closer, the partners and constituents on the ground are much closer, like yourself, are much closer to what the actual data is, and then have that opportunity to correct the locations before the state, proposes to invest any of the
Right.
funds.
No, I totally concur. So that's interesting.
So yeah, ultimately, I think that BDC, you're right, is set up to be the, penultimate source of data and would be the, is really starting to be used for future or for other federal program funding.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great ongoing extension of what you've done with the BEAD's challenge map. So, yeah. And as we providers learn how to, what's the word, readily and easily respond to BDC, it's quite a task to inventory all of that stuff. It's not something that, particularly as rural providers, I can't imagine what Comcast has to do, but it's, as we get it more into our routine, it's going to be very easy, and it's very, very valuable information. I mean, you don't want to waste money on already developed addresses, right? So interesting. Well, I'm thinking up another question. We can all stand by and multitask or something, but if you guys got to go, no worries. I think you answered my question on the rebuttal.
Got a captive audience here, Ben. It's good to get these
I
questions
appreciate it.
because it gives us some idea of some of the thought process that you're going through, which is incredible.
Oh yeah,
that the work that you're doing.
yeah. One of the questions, and I'm trying to provide input that would improve ongoing programs for auditing served and unserved locations. I think BDC does an excellent job of that. However, when it gets down to a grant submittal program, whether it be FFA or CASF, you want to make sure that the program obviously is equitably distributing that money to needing locations. Are you guys involved in the FFA approval process at all, or the
No.
CASF approval? Are you totally separate?
Yeah, we are a separate branch, specifically focused
Okay.
on BEAD. The interactions that we do have with that team is to ensure that there is that we're deduplicating the enforceable commitments, so that again we don't have areas that have been funded by one of those projects
Right.
get duplicate BEAD funding. So we make sure that is not occurring.
Right. And enforceable commitments, I was a little confused on BEADs. The enforceable commitment is one thing, but claiming you have service at a location had to be proven by June 30th, correct?
So that would be for planned service, and then sort of like a subset of that would be existing service. So the planned service would be something that was under, because of when we were talking about the dates that we use for BDC. So something that may not have shown up by that 12/31 date, but happened between and June 30th. June 30th was a date that NTIA gave us. That was their date, not ours. And so for planned service, if you were building out and we're going to have it active by June 30th, that is what that challenge is for. Sort of a subset of that would be if you had existing service that wasn't showing up, you would, sorry, hang on one sec. Then you would do an existing service challenge.
Now, an enforceable commitment, that just means as of what date money was committed, or money is committed by a certain future date. But is there a criteria for that?
An enforceable commitment just means that you were awarded a grant from one of the state programs that we use for deduplication, and that has been officially awarded to you. That would be considered an enforceable commitment, because that would mean that the project areas had been submitted, agreed upon, and were available for us to incorporate into the map.
And it would be a function of that award, how long the award would be available and what the requirements were to be complete by a certain date, according to the award program, the
Yeah.
enforceable commitment.
We
Yeah,
don't,
okay.
BEAD doesn't really care about the end date of that because you're not building it out as part of the BEAD program. So we just need to know that
Got it.
those projects are being covered so that
Got
we
it.
can then fund them through BEAD.
Got it. Okay. So if an enforceable commitment is, well, if it's an enforceable commitment and it's still valid, it's enforceable. So, but if there's some question as to whether the provider has performed under that commitment, that's a separate issue. That's not of your concern.
It is. So that was part of the challenge process, right? So people could challenge can challenge an enforceable commitment saying that there was not, they weren't seeing things happen, or any number of ways that they could challenge that.
So some enforceable commitments have been hanging around for a long, long time.
Yes, they have.
Okay. But that's a separate issue to be decided upon somebody other than BEADS.
As it pertains to the other funding programs, yes, for
Yeah.
purposes of BEAD, we will also, if something happens between the time that we started the challenge process and the time that we do final determination, whether another award is
Enforced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's say, for example, the federal funding account that you mentioned, they are issuing things on a rolling basis. If something was awarded between the time that we started the challenge process,
Right.
and the time that we do final determination, that will be incorporated to ensure that we have the most up-to-date information for the map that we're providing to NTIA.
Yeah, between the time that you finalize your map and it's approved by NTIA, there's likely a lot of FFA funding, maybe other state funds that will be implemented and therefore define enforceable commitments that hopefully the BEADS program will account for before they offer grant opportunities to providers, right?
We have been told by NTIA this week, actually, that they are working on some guidance on how to address that. So that is something that is.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a variable they got to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your answers. This has been the best session yet.
We do
I
our
really, yeah, I get, it's good to be clear on how these programs work. So until we meet again,
Thank you,
I
Ben.
wish you all luck and thank you for all your efforts and work and everything. And we want to remove those two challenges, just as a matter of our reputation,
Yeah.
if anything else. So we'll work on that. So I think I'll get to working on that. And I can't think of any other questions. I will email you if I do.
All right. Thank you, Ben. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks all of you guys. All righty.
Appreciate it.
All right, bye.